Hey YouTube, Pastor Bacon here. Sadly, not with the next episode of Timmy Talk. If you hadn't heard, of course, I've postponed the episode just briefly because I feel like we have to have a serious talk. I don't know about you guys, but the game these last few weeks have not felt the best, especially this last week. Outside of Arena, I actually haven't played any Dark and Darker this week. Loading into the dungeon just has not felt, I just haven't desired to load into a game. Arena's been somewhat fun, although after a while, it kind of gets a little stale, so I play a little bit each day. There's just something kind of off when it comes to how the atmosphere and environment of the dungeon right now. I think one of the first things that's bothering me recently has been the endless dungeon system. I find that there's way too many players on the East servers, and I know that we've had issues for a while that there's not enough players to fill other servers like the OCE servers, but I find that on East servers, where before the endless dungeon system that third parties were already becoming an issue, now it's pretty much third parties are inevitable. If you're playing on any mode that is basically filled quickly, say trios, especially during the popular hours, you're basically having to deal with two teams basically the whole time, maybe even three, and so it's just super populated. What I think the endless dungeon system should focus on instead is just simply filling the lobby once, of reaching whatever the cap was before, reaching that number so that the lobby does have players there, but then stopping, and so that this idea of spawning in somebody else's spawn, that should never happen. I should never be spawning in someone's spawn, even if they spawned in, walked 10 feet, took a red. Even then, I don't want to spawn there, because it just doesn't feel right for the game. And I understand on ruins, a majority of the people go down a level, go immediately into crypts. I think that's fine. Allow the two teams that stay up top, let them duke it out, okay? But this overfilling of lobbies, I think it's not good for the game. I think it's better just to tone it down. Make sure lobbies have players, but don't make it so that lobbies are forced into having full teams. Because what happens is, as modules get cleared, doors are open, people just follow the pathing, and what you get is a third or fourth team just showing up to PvP fights. The second thing I'd like to see would be an inventory update. We have been working with this same little 5x10 inventory on our player for so long, and it's really stinging now this season with the loss of the Express one, because the Express one helped a lot in kind of getting rid of those items that we, maybe they weren't monetarily valuable, but maybe we needed them for questing, or just they're good for, we want to store up our crafting items for later in the season, or whatever it may be. So I think it's time to update the size of the inventory, and I've actually come up with a few ideas. I think one way they could implement this, I think one fix is just by adding small little, if you will, bags that could be bought for a low price, maybe like 40 to 50 gold from the different merchants. And you could utilize these grayed out spaces that are already on the inventory sheet and use those for additional storage. I found they already fit perfectly with the size and everything like that. So visually, I think it just makes sense. So you could add things like a medical bag, and this would be a bag that would just simply hold your potions and your bandages and give you more storage. It's not that, not that potions and bandages couldn't go into your main storage. It's just that this could be a specific bag that has a priority, where if you go to right click a medical item, a red pot, a bandage, or a blue pot, or whatever it may be, it'll first put it into this medical bag. Also, and as memed as much as this is, it's time for a quiver. We need a quiver in the game, and I don't even play Ranger. In fact, Ranger is my least played. I still have a level 50 Ranger right now, and even I think that it's time to deal with all this arrow storage. So a simple quiver just to add into one of the slots, to fill out a 3x4 area, that's enough for 80 arrows. That would be a huge benefit. Again, like I said, it wouldn't prevent Rangers from bringing a couple extra arrows if they want to reach 100, or if they want to be at 120, or whatever it may be. They can still bring arrows in that main 5x10 inventory, but this should just be a way to just prioritize and have a space dedicated for that to help them out a little bit so they have more storage. Another good idea, I think, would be to have like a utility satchel, this being focused on utility type items, so lock picks or bolts or campfires, surgical kits. Maybe bolts could also go into the quiver, but to me, quiver makes more sense for arrows and not bolts, so I put the bolts in this utility satchel. As a wizard main, if I'm running 10 spell, of course I have to bring in multiple campfires, and I bring in more campfires than the ones that can fit on my little hotbar, and so I typically almost always have 1 or 2 in my actual main inventory, which that takes up a 2x4. I think another good idea would be a apothecary sack, basically just to hold mob drops. Also, this could be a good way to like put flowers or herbs, those that like to craft like clarity pots. Also, notice I don't have any throwables pictured here. This is actually my third thing I'd like to see changed. There's a reason why I didn't put any throwables here, because I think throwables have just not been optimized. I think they're good. They're good ways to do damage. Obviously, Francisca axes hurt if you're a squishy class, but I find that in general, the entire throwable experience for me of using throwing knives or using framing axes, no matter what side I'm on, it's not good. I like to use them and they are effective, but having to re-up on them to refill my entire inventory with them, I mean, again, they take up a lot of storage. It's really pesky. You can buy 1 stack every 30 minutes. And so the only way to do it cheaply is to navigate through all your characters and go to your huntsman and buy whatever you need and then throw it in your shared stash and then put it onto whatever character you need it on. Or as most people do, they just go to the marketplace and they pay in a more expensive kind of tax, if you will, so they can quick buy all these things, maybe buy a better rarity of them. And I find I just don't like that system personally. I just don't like how that works. And I don't like the fact that of using them. Sometimes I'm hesitant to even use them in fights at the beginning. Say if I would get into a fight on ruins, I don't even want to really use them because I want to save them for when I get down to the lower levels. And so I find that I just don't like the idea of like you have a limited amount, but at the same time I don't want there to be an unlimited amount where it's just completely spammable, because nobody, and I mean nobody, likes getting hit with 6+ Franny axes in a row. Okay, it's a bad feeling. And so because of this, I've been trying to kind of brainstorm ways I think they could fix this, and I've come to what I think would be a good solution. I think one thing they could do is remove the throwables from the game entirely and then re-add them back as class-specific skills. Okay, what I mean by that is specifically not making them equipable as they are currently. So every class that has Franny axes now would get a Franny axe skill. Every class that has access to throwing knives now would get a throwing knife skill. But this would fix all of the issues that I listed prior. You don't have to go and buy them anymore. Having to, going through all the marketplace and stuff like that and having to re-up on them every time you go into the dungeon. You wouldn't feel bad when you have to drop a bunch of them because you kill someone who's wearing bis and you need the storage, right? But it also fixes the spamming of them because it's now a skill that can be on cooldown, and we can fit the cooldown to what feels better for basically whatever seems more balanced. So imagine this, like hitting a skill in the middle of a fight. You're on a rogue, right? And you press this skill and you pull out 3 throwing knives. There's an actual animation for that. And you can throw those 3 throwing knives. Or maybe you're a barbarian and, a squish class is getting away from you. You press your little skill button, you pull out 2 Franny axes, you can throw them, and then your skill goes on cooldown, and after a little while, you get to use them again after a cooldown. And this allows you to actually implement throwing items as an actual aspect of consistent combat that's been able to use over and over and over again, and you don't have to worry about inventory management, how many knives you have left, how many axes you have left, etc. But it still kind of has a balanced feel to it, in my opinion. I think this would allow rogues to build more into throwing knives as an actual form of damage, and then they don't have to fear about running out of ways to do DPS if they get into too many fights early on into the levels. And if you're saying, well, no one's going to use this skill, so what's the point, because they need their other skills? Well, don't worry, I've actually already thought of that. This has been going around the community for a little while, and I actually am such a big fan of this idea. I think Iron Mage should give us the ability to equip a 3rd skill. If we get the ability to pick a 3rd skill slot, the amount of build possibilities would skyrocket, and I think it would be for the better. Yes, obviously, there would have to be significant nerfs across the board. I am aware of that. So if you're already typing, your keyboard's already going 200 miles an hour because you're like, well, what about this combination? I am already aware of the multiple combinations that would be absolutely broken. Okay, I know that. Obviously, I'm saying this with assuming that there would have to be nerfs made to the different skills and such like that. However, I think it would actually be a blast. I mean, me as a wizard main, just the idea of having 10 spell wizard with meditation sounds amazing to me. They're adding all these really cool fighter abilities, and yet you still see a majority of the player base using sprint and second wind. So a third skill set would allow the people to start experimenting with these different abilities like spell reflection or shield bash or whatever it may be, because they don't have to build the entire build around that one particular skill. You have a little bit of breathing room to kind of build different things. Another fix that I think needs to happen deals with fog of war. I really think just a simple fix for this, and honestly I probably would be satisfied. I think the part of the map that's revealed from your player needs to be increased a good portion. More so thinking with new players in mind. New players need to be able to begin learning what modules look like, and us veterans have an advantage in the fact that we've seen these modules and been able to learn them because we didn't have to unravel them and uncover them like we do now. And I find that it's harder to actually learn modules. It'll be harder for them to learn modules because they have to actually walk every square footage of the modules currently. To me, it just doesn't make sense. If you're in the middle of a module, I think that entire module should be cleared on your map, not just a skinny portion of it, if that makes sense. Number 6, I want to talk a little bit about the AP system. Just to be blunt, it sucks. The AP system sucks. It completely changes how people behave in the HR dungeon. You know the AP season has started just because people change and the atmosphere of the dungeon feels different. People rat more often. You also notice that people will not play on their certain characters after they do reach demigod, and I just think that's a bad mechanic. And so I think a very simple solution to this, and I've heard this before, just make it so that you only gain AP. Make it so that reaching demigod is more so a time invested rather than did you win enough in a row or something like that. I find that I just don't like that. Also, it allows players to play as they prefer in HR. That, maybe your playstyle isn't the most optimal way to get to demigod, and maybe because you're gonna have those that want to rush the demigod, they want to be on the leaderboard, and that's fine. But if you just want to play HR for PvP or for bossing or and extracting with whatever you find valuable, having it so that AP is just only gained and never lost, well, you get to demigod just by playing HR. And I think that's what we want, is it not? We just want people to play the game. Also, a bonus idea on this, why not have arena rewards? We spend so much time in arena for arena ranks and things like that, and yes, they come with bragging rights, and that's good. But I think something just as simple as just like a seasonal rank nameplate would go a long way. Just a simple, just showing what rank you were on what season that you can add to your character would be something that would be very beneficial to the game. Number 7 has to do with more so consumable items. I think Iron Mace should make it so that all potions are available for purchase at the poor quality by the alchemist. So that meaning protection potions, magic protection potions, maybe, and even clarity pots should be purchasable at a poor quality. This also means that certain qualities for all the potions would need to be added. So there's certain potions where the poor quality is not available, some where the common quality is not in the game, etc. So obviously add into the game where there's a poor, common, uncommon, etc. Also, you'll notice I didn't mention invis potions, and that's because I think we should remove invis potions from the entire game. Number 8, I want to talk a little bit about anti-rat behavior. All I can say, it's time. Iron Mace, it's time. We need, if there's any focus that we need in the next season, it's to target rat behavior. Ratting behavior, I find, is one of the biggest things that it grinds my gears like nothing else. It's a drain on the community's fun factor. It gives so many avenues for cheaters and for RMTers to basically further abuse honest players. And so I think one big fix that would help anti-rat behavior is to remove invisibility potions. At least in the way that it currently works in this game of a long-term form of complete invisibility, I think that has to go. I think we either need to rework how invisibility potions work in general, making it so they're not just so effective of basically ratting in PvP, or just remove them entirely. I would be fine with that too. Also, I think, and this is going to get me some heat, I know, but I think the rogue class should not be known as the invisibility class, in the sense of just pressing a button and going invisible. You're going to hear this next section as me saying, you know, oh, just remove hide. That's not what I'm saying. And I want you to understand that is not the point of what I'm trying to explain. But Rogue in its current state, it fundamentally changes the game, for my opinion, for the worse. Just the sheer existence of Rogue in the game makes people play certain ways. You know, if you see two players and you're playing trios, part of the skill of the game is just saying, oh, they may have a Rogue, so where is he? They have the ability to be completely invisible regardless if a room is completely lit or completely dark. There's no effect on Rogue's invisibility whatsoever. They're completely invisible, no questions asked. I think Rogue invisibility should instead be centered more around there being enough darkness to be in hide, right? So like there's already a prompt in the game on Rogue where if you have a torch in your hand, you're unable to go invisible. I think kind of the same idea, rather than they're just, you know, basically you just press the button and you go into hide. I think there should be a check to see if you're actually within enough darkness or not to be able to be in hide. This would add into an aspect to the game where rogues can't just rat in pure brightness, if that makes sense, or just sitting on doors that are fully lit. It also would give torches, player thrown torches, a different value to it in that you're lighting up certain areas. And this also allows for a little more depth to the character, that the actual darkness in the dungeon plays a role into the rogue's playstyle, rather than there just being this kind of boring pop hide, you're invisible and you crouch walk directly towards the player that you see. Now, to counteract this, because I'm sure many people hear this as, hey, Bacon wants to nerf rogues. I do believe that rogues need something else. Rogue right now, in my opinion, is just not a fun class for me. I feel like it's very one-dimensional. I've played a lot of Rogue in Arena, and it is fun for about an hour, and then I kind of just get bored with the class because it's just the same thing over and over again. And my idea was kind of an item utility wheel. You may have heard some other people suggest this before, but this is just like an item wheel, kind of like spell slots or song wheels, but it just allows them to pick from a list of things that gives them better team viability. So one thing they could do is remove the smoke screen and caltrops, and just as they are currently as a skill, but just add them as like a tool that's available for the rogue in game. Also, what they could add too is instead of them just dropping at the foot of the rogue, making them like an equipable item where they're able to chunk them a little bit, just of a short distance, maybe throwing a smoke pot a few feet over towards an ally, or throwing caltrops in a doorway or something to kind of slow that exit or something like that, just to give the rogue a little bit of like an IQ aspect to the game of like setting up plays and things like that. I think a new tool they could add too is, I don't really have a better name for this, but pocket sand. A surprise attack, you know, at like short range that you could use to blind targets for a short period of time. I think rogue could use that to heavily benefit them, maybe use that to go in for damage without, you know, maybe taking damage, or easier to dodge, or etc. Also, I like this idea of like a throwable bag of powder that when it'll explode when it makes contact with like a wall or the floor or something like that. And this like powder, it distinguishes all light sources in a certain area. You know, and we could call it like eclipsing powder or something like that. Something really cool about, you know, making darkness with this this little bag of powder. Also like the idea of like a trickster lock, the ability to lock a door and require either a lockpick to open it, or maybe that's too strong. And so maybe what they could do instead is like slowing the interaction time by the door like a lot. You know, currently right now we already have like the slow loot interaction speed, so like players that you did not kill, you have to slow interact with them. Kind of the same idea, but this would be on doors that have been locked by a rogue. And obviously, because, you know, balancing is an issue, obviously because these items are kind of like on a spell wheel, if you will, they would be kind of like spell slots too, in that there would be a limited amount of them, but they would be able to be recovered at a campfire. Number 2, I think we should look at the revival system. I think reviving your teammates is a little bit too difficult, to the point where it kind of makes, you know, moments that should be really, really sweet. You know, maybe your boy clutches up a team fight, and it's a 3v3, and it comes down to a 1v1, and he lands the last hit and he's got 1 HP. I feel like in those scenarios, it's almost like nobody kind of wins. If your team is victorious over the other team, even if it comes down to a 1v1, I just feel like being able to revive a little bit easier would be a huge impact on the game's health. So like adding a small utility item, kind of similar to a surgical kit, that isn't the most optimal way to res somebody, but it just enables the ability to res them where they are. Maybe it takes a super long duration, like 30 seconds to a minute or something like that. just being able to get your teammates up where they are if there's no resurrection shrines available, especially with the fog of war, being able to find them now is harder than ever before if you're on Crypts or Inferno. And also, I think what we could do is make the shrines of sacrifice, make them come back up again after a certain duration, like every other shrine in the game. I think the shrine duration's like 2 minutes, and they come back. Why are the revival shrines quit? Why are they one use? Maybe people disagree with me there, but I think having them come back after like 2 minutes would not be a bad idea. I think having them go down, I think it just incentivizes not fighting in the dungeon. Also, I think they should add a way that the res shrine is used. And so instead of bringing the player's heart to the shrine, add the ability to bring the light of the res shrine to the dead body itself, which will allow you to revive the player with all their gear already equipped, all their stuff in their inventory as is. Obviously still requiring all the other requirements that it needs. Also, I think carrying the revival light could make you vulnerable. So maybe this could be a fun aspect of reviving where it's, you go and grab the light, but you have to make sure you hold it in both hands, which means you can't equip a weapon or you can't equip spells. And if you do, it distinguishes the light. So you either have to go back or you have to like give up. Number 11, I think we really need to rework bows and daggers. I think one idea that we could do, and at least try, is to bring the damage down from all of the bows significantly, but in response to that, greatly increase their armor penetration. And so serve bows are doing 15 damage, but they have 25% armor pen. Maybe recurve bows have 20 damage, but they have 50% armor pen. Maybe long bows, they have 25 damage, but they have 75% armor pen. The idea is that this would spread out the percentage of damage from bows more evenly across the different classes. And so you'd have less of this where rangers can just simply two-shot wizards with the longbow, but then they pump 6, 7, 8 arrows into a PDR fighter, and the fighter's still alive. I think this also could be repeated for crossbows and windlasses. Actually go even more on the extreme side. So bring windlasses damage down by like 20 to 25, but shoot the armor penetration up, like say like 85%, 90%. And then crossbows the same thing in kind of a similar fashion too. This would stop rangers from building one-shot builds, and make it so that crossbows can kind of become like a type of like armor buster, which allows you to get a little bit of damage in on those that have heavy PDR. I think we need to do the same thing with all the daggers in the game as well. I think daggers could lose a significant amount of base damage, but then increase their armor pen, say, honestly, up to like 50% per, which enable rogues with dual wielding daggers to have 100% armor pen, but they do less damage overall. That may sound really radical and make it sound like rogues and rangers don't do damage anymore. What this actually would do is even out the amount of damage that rogues and rangers are doing. What it would do is make it so that the number of hits that it takes for them to kill one class is similar now to all the classes in the game, rather than being able to just simply two-shot wizards and it taking 20 shots to kill a PDR fighter. Number 12 is honestly very simple and to the point. I think Iron Mace needs to have a no tolerance policy for cheaters, and I think they need to be a little bit harder on exploiters as well. I think if someone is caught cheating, and by this I mean undeniably, by 100% certainty they are cheating, then I think that person needs a lifetime ban. I'm not talking about like sus actions, right? And then that leads to like a temp ban. I'm not talking about those people who are not sure. But I'm saying if a person is truly caught cheating, if something is found, a program that they shouldn't be using, they need to be shown the door for good. I don't know what this would require, if they need to, if their hardware needs to be blacklisted or like an IP ban, but these people need to be removed from the game indefinitely. Also, I think we should add some type of like almost like a CSGO style Overwatch system to the game, which will allow players to help Iron Mace with the cheater payload. I know there's enough honest players that would love to help. Just of course, don't give the power to ban a player to just one player. And of course, we need to make sure everything is anonymous. But a simple Overwatch system where your community can help flag cases for you, I think would be a huge help. The reason why I bring this last point up is because I've noticed that this wipe I've been reporting more often than usual, and I'm actually seeing less ban messages than I have in the past. If there's a way that the community could take a little bit of the pressure off Iron Mace to help catch cheaters, I think it would be a good idea. And that's all my changes I'd like to see. I know not everyone's going to agree with me on every single point. But let me know what you think in the comment section below. Maybe there's something you like about what I said, but you would tweak it a little bit. Let me know. I'd love to dialogue with you in the comment section below. Also, this video took a lot to make. It took a long time to make. And so would you do me the honor of hitting like, maybe subscribing, but more importantly, just sharing it with your friends. Maybe you have some friends that the game has felt stale for them too. They haven't been playing it very often. Send this video to them and see what they think too. See if it would get them to come back to the game if these changes were made, if they would like it. And let me know. I'd love to know if, in general, if these changes would help the player base or not. Don't forget to join my Discords if you're interested in the Darker and Darker Fan Club Discord. That link is below. If you want to get to know just more about me in general and my Christian community that we have, you can join the actual official solo Discord as well, also in the description. Again, subscribe, like, all those good stuff. I appreciate you guys so much for watching. Shouldn't be too much longer, and we'll have the next episode on Timmy Talk out. Again, talking about how to space with spellcasters, you know, knowing when to, you know, do I have enough time in this situation to cast a spell, or should I get more space, and things like that. If you still have questions about that, you can, of course, feel free to comment below as well. Other than that, I'm not going to waste any more of your time. I hope you enjoyed watching this video, and we'll see you soon in the next episode of Timmy Talk. Much love. Love you. Bye-bye.